So somebody left these here, and I don't know who left them here from a game night. I've never had these before, and I'm going to try it.
Okay.
And I brought these specifically for the cold open because I figure I can, it maybe my reaction will be worthwhile. I don't know. I'd never heard of them until somebody brought them, and it might have been you even. I have no idea, but it's Pocky.
Oh God, no, it wasn't me. That sounds like an Ian thing.
I was thinking it was Jason, actually. It was my guess. So if you're listening, Jason, did you leave the Pocky at my house that I'm about to eat? I don't know. I don't even know how to eat this. There's like a stick. I don't know if it's a stick or a cookie. I'm not sure.
What kind is it? Is it a candy? Is it a snack?
It's like a snack candy kind of thing. Like, okay, it does say biscuit sticks. That's good. So I can eat them. But it's like chocolate and almond.
Okay,
is what's going on there. So I don't know. Well, it's not bad. I honestly I did not know what to expect. It actually looks like it would be painful to eat when you look at it. It's very like jagged and sharp looking.
Yeah, there's a lot of contours.
Yeah, somebody left Pocky at my house, and I'm finally eating. This is a while ago. It's been there. I've seen it.
Oh God.
It was left on my mini fridge.
Did you check an expiration date?
I mean, it's comes sealed in a little plastic bag. I mean,
That's good enough for you.
Oh, and there's a lot of Japanese on it, so I might be leaning back more toward it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Brad Guy to Super Friends. I'm your intro host, Brian Labick. Taking over for the actual episode will be Josh Zorch and Mike Bradley. So for anyone that's, listened to these episodes before, you know what that means. It's a horror-themed episode. So I will keep this as short as I can so that we can get to these guys talking. But for those that know me or have listened to past episodes where this has come up, I'm not a horror guy. It's a genre that's not for me. I don't follow it. I don't go out of my way to watch the stuff. So that's when it's nice to have friends that do, so they can talk about this stuff and I can just kind of take a back seat. So I know there's some of you out there that do like all this stuff as much as they do, so this episode is for you. Josh and Mike are going to take over. They're going to go through, I believe, some quick reviews on some of the horror movies that they've talked about, I think on previous episodes that were coming out that they have now seen. So they're going to refresh on those and then probably talk about some upcoming horror movies that are coming out over the next couple months. Stuff to keep your eyes on. So that's what you got in store. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to these inmates. They're going to run the asylum for this one. So Josh and Mike, take it from here.
Thanks, Brian. We're glad to be here to talk about all the scary stuff once again. So how's the horror movie watching been going for you? My co-host here, Josh Zorch.
For me, oh man. I honestly, I'm gonna say it got me through this winter. Not that there weren't other things there too, but man, the winters are getting harder and harder for me, and these little bumps along the way that kind of remind you, like, okay, let's raise your blood pressure a little bit for 90 minutes. Kind of reinvigorates a little bit of that. It's like snap you out of the gloom depression of Pittsburgh winters sometimes. So it's been a good lifeline.
That's fair. Would you say this winter and I guess horror season from last year that really carries over past Halloween, do you think that was better all around? Not any individual movie or anything. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was better than the last couple years or worse, or how did you feel about the grand total scheme of things on it?
I think after post-COVID, this genre, especially theatrically, is finding its footing again.
Excellent. I actually feel the same way. So what we're going to be doing for you guys here is we're going to review episode 274. We talked about a whole bunch of horror movies that were coming out last horror movie season, if you will. that's the Halloween season. But then we also have the upcoming summer horror movie season and a little bit of creeping into what's going to be coming this year in October for that horror season, which of course we'll cover when we get closer to that date, because there's going to be a lot more coming out during spooky movie season than just the few that we're going to cover that will be there. So we'll, I'm sure, have another September episode again. If you'd like to reference that episode and go back and hear what we talked about then, and maybe the preview, and compare how we thought about these beforehand to how we feel now, that's episode number 274 from September 11th, 2022. So, Josh has the list for us here of the movies we talked about last time. We are going to be going a quick review over them. We've talked about some of them at much greater length in our top 10 lists and in other places along the way in other episodes. So we're going to give a quick look here.
Yeah, a few of these I think made some of our favorites of 2022. Others made we'll see as our on some of our anticipated of 2023. So
I think one was even a disappointment.
Probably.
So we're going to do this very simple. It's going to be a have you seen it? Yes or no. And then we're going to follow that with a rating out of 10. We're not going to say anything else about them. We don't want to spoil them. We don't want to do any of that. Just take it. If it's a good rating out of 10 from both of us, it's probably a horror movie you should see. And if it's a bad rating out of 10 from both of us, you probably should avoid it. If it's in the middle, make up your own fucking mind. Who cares?
or at least know that we're doing our best to try to not waste your time. So
that's the idea.
If it's a lower rating, it's because we don't think that there was enough to pass it along and say, yes, you have to check this out. But of course, as our the Super Friends mantra will always say, you do you and decide for yourself and whatnot. But take it as you will.
Yeah, I will always encourage you listeners out there to watch these movies for yourselves and see, maybe you tend to agree with one of us more than the others. In this case, it's just Josh and I on these ratings, but there's 5 of us that do this show pretty regularly, and maybe you find like, man, that Andy, every time he gives a good rating, I agree with it. Listen to him and ignore the rest of us. I mean, that's
good point.
But in general, we just want to, I encourage you to watch movies anyways. Just because somebody says something's good or bad doesn't mean you'll feel that way. Give movies a chance. You can always turn them off if they're really bad. It's your option. It's a choice you have. So, Josh, why don't you go ahead and get us into this list so we can actually start talking about some movies.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Movies.
Dive in.
All right. So we're basically going to go right through our list from episode 274 that Mike mentioned, just top to bottom in that basically same order. And as he said, very simple. Did you see it? Yes or no? And if so, what do you think of it out of 10? And we're each going to offer that, and then we'll move on and just tick through them. Because there's, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a lot in that last batch. It was chunky.
There was.
So.
And that's something else I wanted to say right before we get started here, is that after this is when we're going to look at all the movies to come. The preview section will come after the review section. I know it sounds backwards, but that's the way we're going to organize this, because this stuff has already happened. The other half of the episode will be talking about stuff that is upcoming.
Exactly. We got to put the bookend on what we gave you guys previously, and then lay the breadcrumbs to follow into the future.
Yep, and we'll talk about those later as well. But for now, we have the list from last time. Let's hit it.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna start with the prequel sequel, Orphan First Kill. Did you catch this?
I did not. I meant to. I had not watched either of these. And 2 days ago, I watched the first one for the first time, and I did not manage to squeeze in this one before the show here. I did like the first one, though. It was pretty cool.
I have same sort of quick thought. Right after we did the last episode, when we talked about First Kill, I had never seen the original, so I did see it a few weeks after that, but unfortunately never got around to seeing this one yet. But I think it might be on Amazon right now as of the release of this episode. So if you are a Prime subscriber, I believe that Orphan First Kill is there for you. So we're not off to a great start. We both are no's on that, but that's okay. I think there's going to be way more yeses on this list than no's if I had to guess. So next on the list, Mike, The Invitation.
Yes, I did see The Invitation.
All right, and what do we think out of 10?
I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I will stand by that. It's solid.
Okay.
How about you?
I did see it, and I'm giving it a 5. I think that is just for reference for the rest of these. That's kind of my that's going to be my, hey, this wasn't bad. It didn't move me, and it didn't change, the genre, but it wasn't a waste of my time. The 5 to 6 range, that's what that does for me. So take that as we go forward.
So we got an aggregate 6 on that one.
Yeah.
That's about what I would have expected.
Yeah. I'm expecting big things on this, even though we're not dissecting these right now, but Barbarian.
Yes, of course I saw Barbarian. Barbarian I give a 9 out of 10. Must see. It is a must see horror movie.
Wow. All right, that is big praise. I saw it as well. I'm starting at a 7.5 for this. I think another viewing would probably bump that up. But the things in my own head that I historically put in the 9 to 10 range for the genre, it's really hard for things to ascend to that level for me. So the 7.5, 7 to 8 kind of range on these would be really stellar praise for me.
And I think that's something we should clarify. This is my horror movie rating. This is not my
that's a good point.
Cinephile film critic rating level. This is a horror movie rating that I've given these movies because, in general, I feel like critics are way too harsh on horror movies in terms of the scores and things that they give them. And I understand a lot of horror movies don't know how to end. It's a big problem in the genre. They screw up the ending so many times. Everything's really cool up till the end, and then you're like, oh, man. Barbarian does not do that. Watch this fucking movie. It's amazing.
I would agree. Chugging along to the next. This Pearl we talked about is a prequel, another prequel sequel to the movie X that came out 6 months after X.
Yes.
And both of those ideas really astonished me when I heard about them. So I did see both of them, but specifically on Pearl, Mike, where do you stand?
I thought Pearl was excellent. I think it was a step up from X myself.
Okay.
Mia Goth is, man, she is a really good actress in this genre. She is, I feel like she belongs in better films, is kind of where I would say. So, yes, of course I saw Pearl. I gave it an 8.5.
All right.
I would ask you, how'd you feel about X? Because I know when we had talked last time, you hadn't seen it yet, so I was trying not to spoil anything about Pearl for you.
Right.
Before we hit Pearl, how did you like X?
As I was putting this together for today, I actually realized that for some reason I don't remember a lot about Pearl. For whatever reason, if I have to recall something quickly, I remembered a lot more about X than I did Pearl. Not that I disliked Pearl at all, but for some reason I'm just not. Just not much of it stuck in my memory. So I think just based on that initially, I enjoyed X quite a bit. But I remember liking Pearl while I was watching it. So I gave it a 6.5 still. But for some reason, I just can't really tell you much about it right now. I don't know why.
That's all right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where we land on this one. Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yes, you had asked me a while ago. You sent me a text like, "Oh, hey, have you seen Jeepers Creepers Reborn?"
Yeah.
And I said, and I'll say now what I said then.
Uh-huh.
Yes, but I actually had to look up a trailer for the movie to remember anything about it. And again, I want to keep this very short. So I've seen it. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. They need to just give up on this and just let the first one be the cult classic that it is, because ever since then they've continued to try to make these and it just shouldn't be done. Like, the first one is extremely good, still holds up. Justin Long's amazing. It does so good. Everything after that has absolutely sucked. Just stop. These movies just got to stop. You're not going to recapture it. You haven't even done it once, so stop.
I'm kind of in your camp. I saw this a couple weeks ago. I was very underwhelmed by it. I'm giving it a 2.5. I think there's some saving value in the second one, in Jeepers Creepers 2, but for some reason whoever owns this IP is just taking, yeah, I don't know, the people that they're hiring to write the stories they're accepting, then the budgets that they put into them, it's been diminishing ideas and returns, in my opinion, for quite a long time. And I mean, it's been years. We talked about this before last September. It's been at least 15 years, I think. Or no, there was almost 15 years between Jeepers Creepers 2 and 3. And then
there was a huge gap, because the first two were pretty quick.
Yeah, and then this one was like 5 to 6 years since the last one. But yeah, I agree with you. Long story short, yes, did not think much of Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yeah.
The next one we hit as we're getting closer in the timeline to Halloween season, to actual Halloween last year. We had a movie we talked about quite a bit called Smile.
Yes, of course I saw Smile. If you listened to the top 10 episode of 2022, that was on my list. I don't recall what position it was in, but Smile, I think I give it a 9.5, 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I'll just reiterate the same thing I said as the baseline of my top 10 there. The absolute best handling of mental illness I have seen in any movie, I think. The main character and the acting and writing for the character are so much more accurate to real life mental illness that I have encountered than anything I've seen on film. It's always, I just feel like it's always very fantastical in its portrayal and things like Joker and things like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas the much more grounded, real take on mental illness in Smile was so well done that I can't fault it at all.
Nice to know. I saw this as well. I enjoyed it. Again, didn't move the earth for me, but it lands at a solid 6 for me.
Cool.
This is one. So did you end up watching our next entry? Did you end up watching this second season of Chucky on, I think, like FX or the USA Network or something?
So I'm waiting. I want to. I saw the first season. Fucking loved it.
Yeah, you really talked highly of it in our last discussion.
Yeah, it's great. I have not seen the second season yet because I have not found a way to watch it. Like, the first season was on Peacock, and I was able to just watch it there. I really don't want to buy the season. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't feel like owning it, so I've been kind of waiting for it to show up on a streaming service where I will binge watch the shit out of it the moment it turns up.
Fair. I did not see this either. Didn't catch up with the first season in any way. So nothing else to say about that. But it sounds like Mike is anticipating it quite a bit. Moving on to some premium streaming products, if you will. There was a Hellraiser remake made by Hulu. I never got around to this. I had meant to. It's because we never ended up watching any more than the first of the original Hellraisers, and I wanted Sarah and I to at least get through the first 3 before I watched this. We both sort of said we'll eventually watch the other 9 or however many there are, but we wanted to at least watch the first 3, and we never did. So I unfortunately never got to see this yet. Did you?
Yes, this is actually the reason that I got a Hulu subscription for 1 month.
Ooh, nice.
But it was also, the free trial month is what I
Yeah.
did. But yes, it's if you like Hellraiser, you will like this. If you don't like
Oh.
Hellraiser, this is not going to change your opinion on it.
Ah,
I
okay,
give it an
that's a
8
good
out of
way.
10 because
All right.
I have a Hellraiser tattoo on me. I fucking love the series. Um, so yes, I really enjoyed it. Um, 8 out of 10. It's again, if you don't like the series, this isn't going to change your mind. If you just don't get it, you're not going to get it any better now.
Yeah, fair. I'll have to get around to that soon. Um, keeping on the streaming services for a moment. The we'll just call it. There was other creators and directors in this mix this time, but the Mike Flanagan 2023 series for Netflix was called The Midnight Club. I'll start on this real quick. I saw this. I freaking loved it. I absolutely loved this series. I don't know if they're gonna ever do more or continue any of the characters' stories or start with like a different group, but do a similar idea with a different actual story they're telling, but sort of the same premise. I love this. I gave the series an 8 out of 10.
I saw it as well, and I also thought it was extremely good. Loved it. I gave it an 8 out of 10 as well. This is a good series to check out, and it's one of those ones that's. I mean, even if you want to introduce the kids to horror, this is a good way. It's
Yeah,
like
it's pretty tame in a lot of
yeah,
ways.
yeah, like it's got its moments, but it's a good teen horror movie. You know what I mean, or horror show rather. But it was fun. It was good.
Absolutely. So speaking of Mike Flanagan, we had talked about what we expected his next Netflix series to be, which is an adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher. And we had seen certain entertainment reports that the series had actually been completed in the spring of 2022, but was not being released in the fall of 22, and really nothing else has been talked about it. There's speculation now that rumor that it will be this this year's Halloween show, and from what I'm actually hearing, this will be the last at least for the contemporary time. This will be the last series that Mike Flanagan does for Netflix for a while. He's going to go on and do some other things, but I think he's given us a great run. But unfortunately, we can't weigh in on something that hasn't been released to us to consume yet. But I'm definitely looking forward to the fall of the House of Usher whenever we get it. Hopefully, that will be, as I said, this fall. What we did end up getting though in October is the very aptly titled Halloween Ends. Mike and I spoke at length in previous discussions on the show about our disappointment and underwhelmed feelings. We did not think highly of Halloween Kills. We'll say that. I personally I saw Halloween Ends. I think it was a better success than Halloween Kills. And they did things, particularly in the ending of it, that I did not think they were going to do. So I'm landing with a 6.5, sort of middle of the road there for Halloween Ends. How about you?
This was good enough. Is the
Yeah,
way I would
yeah.
put it. Like it did a good enough job wrapping things up for this little trilogy they were doing. I gave it a
Actually,
5 out of 10.
yeah, you know what? I'm gonna amend my rating down a little bit to 5.5 because I just remembered the entire subplot with the daughter's boyfriend that I absolutely hated.
Yeah, it had its problems.
Yeah,
I mean, the first movie in this trilogy really got me excited for the next movies, and neither one of them lived up to that first one.
agreed.
So yeah, 5 out of 10. watch it to end the trilogy, but you'll probably never watch it again after that.
Agreed. Whereas the first Halloween, call it reboot, whatever the hell they are to be considered now, the
Re-sequel.
2018
A requel.
Yeah, the 2018 one that kind of restarted this trilogy piece of it that brought back Jamie Lee Curtis again. Still really solid. I think you can watch it on its own, in a certain timeline kind of continuity and just stop. It works perfectly. And if that's the end of it,
Yep.
that's the end of it. It actually works.
Act
so
like
you
the
always have
other
that.
two don't exist. That's all you gotta do.
All right, moving on. Next we have Pray for the Devil. This was a story of a nun who is accepted into the idea she would be the first nun accepted into the Vatican's exorcism training school, basically. Did you catch this?
I did.
What'd you think?
2 out of 10. 2 out of 10.
Whoa! All right. Did
Um,
not like it very much.
Nope. I would give it, the stinker rating for me.
Oh, man.
I did.
All right.
I did not enjoy this one at all.
Fair. I'm a bit more kind to it. Again, I thought it just was what it was. Wasn't special, but I didn't think it failed that badly. I gave it a 6.5. But that's why we have different people on the show, and we give you the spectrum.
Everybody's got their opinion. I don't want to rail on it. I gave it a stinker rating. I'm not gonna dig into it too hard.
That is fair. I imagine this one is another that's going to be high on the register for both of us. This is the Ralph Fiennes, Nicholas Hoult, Anna Taylor-Joy. I'll call it masterpiece. I really will. This is The Menu. I surprisingly, in a way, like, I fucking loved this movie so much more than I ever thought that I would have. I thought it would be like an interesting thriller in a way, like, well, those trailers are very interestingly cut. What are the answers to the questions that they're obviously setting up? I love this movie a lot. This got an 8.5 out of me.
I want to say this was 3, number 3, or on
It was
my
high
top
for you.
10.
Yeah.
I also gave this a 9.5.
Nice.
I would put it above Smile. They have the same rating, but
Yeah.
we'll call it a 9.51. Yeah, this movie is an excellent skewering of just about everything in society, and in so many different ways that they attack it, and it's very clever.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that's it's on the nose without being so on the nose that you know what's about to happen.
It's packaged. Those ideas you're talking about, I think they found such an interesting way to package it inside the rest of the story they were telling. And then the left turns that the story takes sometimes, along with the actors' choices and execution of it and the direction, like it's nearly flawless. Like, I have very little ever to like critique about this movie.
Yeah, and it just barely skirts that thriller horror borderline, where it ends up in that enough into horror that I think it belongs here.
Yeah, I think even in our reviews, our 22 review, because we sort of create this arbitrary category from time to time. When we're talking with Brian, we kind of, the is it the Cereal Kicks? Is that the one that has the slogan like "Kid tested, mother approved"? Is that Kicks?
Might be, yeah. I
feel like
I'm sure they're like,
we have a similar thing. I feel like that goes on where we kind of have like a Brian approved, or Brian recommended type of thing, like a thriller horror that we think Brian could enjoy while also being able to handle. And this like towed the line of that just perfectly.
Yes, and it ends, the way they reach a resolution for one of the characters in the movie toward the end, it's just my favorite character decision and subsequent consequence / whatever you want to call it, in any modern movie I can kind of recall in a moment. And I can't again, I'm not spoiling anything here. It's just a really awesome moment to see,
Yeah.
and I'm sure Josh knows what I'm talking about. If you watch it, you'll know too. It is just that good.
It is. So yes, high praise for the menu. Okay, we got about 10 more of these to get through, so let's try to maybe pick up our pace a little bit for both of us. We love to gush about this. This is our problem.
It is.
All right.
It is.
So,
it's
but you know what? This is a good turnover because this pretty much puts us right into 2023. We turn the corner from 2022. So new year, new group. From January to now, here's what we've been ingesting. Michael, did you see the movie Megan, spelled M3 GAN?
Yes, I did. And as cringe as that spelling is, it's not bad.
It's not the worst.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 is where I'd land on Megan. Good enough.
Yeah.
They're making a sequel. It
are
is
they?
confirmed they are making Megan 2.0, which of course that's what they would fucking call it.
Makes sense.
But they are making it. So it made enough money, I guess, that they were willing to go and do it again because it probably wasn't terribly cheap to make. Because there was a lot of effects happening here. So, but yeah, all around decent.
Okay. We pretty much agreed on that. I did see this in theaters as well. And yeah, we landed at a 6.5 for this. I thought they found an interesting way to find their path into the idea without it just seeming like a 100% Chucky reimagining.
Right.
Which it kind of at least is like 50% that, but the other 50% finds creativity.
And to be fair, there's so many killer doll movies. I mean,
yeah,
like Puppet Master, I think has probably close to as many sequels as Child's Play at this point.
Nah, you're probably not wrong.
And so lots of movies have copied that formula.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
all right, so moving on to the next. This one we're gonna try to just be as brief as we can in a way, because I think it's gonna be difficult to be succinct. There's a movie that came out, folks, called Infinity Pool, starring Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård. We both have seen this. We talked about this pre-show. We both have seen this. Mike,
Brian, this is not for you.
No, that's true. Brian, this is not on the Kicks approved list.
I'm sorry, I wanted to get that in there ahead of time, just in case he got fooled by it, because maybe the trailers don't convey enough.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
but go
true.
ahead. Sorry.
Let's start with your rating, and then if you can, keep it to just like 20 seconds of comments.
I give it an 8 out of 10. It is a very stylistic, vision and art-driven movie trying to make a statement and say a lot of things, and that's really cool. I would also say do not watch this movie unless you are prepared for what it is and what you're going to see. It is a Cronenberg movie. Look up what that is before you decide to watch this. You may or may not be okay with a lot of things in this movie. If you don't know ahead of time what you're in for.
Yeah, that's as best as I could put it as well. We saw this, as told Mike beforehand. It was I had not heard of it at all, and we look at the movie listings on a Wednesday for that Friday opening, and we see this. We're like, wait, these actors? Who the hell? Like, we've never heard of this. What is it? So just on a whim, we're like, let's go. Let's just do kind of like a slight spontaneous thing, and let's see what this is. Really, really weird for us. I mean, I've seen weirder. Don't get me wrong. I've seen two of the 3 Human Centipede movies. So this was like a Pixar movie compared to that, but it's a lot. There's a lot going on. Even aside from that, for my tastes, I don't think there was a whole lot there for me to find compelling or my entertainment sensibilities. So this only got a 4 from me.
And to that, I would say, like, for me, the reason I go 8 out of 10 on this is because just the idea of how they set up the general outline of how things occur in the movie was a really awesome idea for a horror movie.
True. Okay.
It's also a Cronenberg movie. I feel like this could be a 10 out of 10 horror movie made by somebody with a less twisted brain than David Cronenberg.
Touche. Point taken. So that's what we'll leave you with for Infinity Pool. So the next entry that we had talked about in our discussion was a film that we thought at the time we were seeing information that was indicating that it might get released in January. In fact, either that was wrong or it got delayed. It's actually now going to be coming out in August, and I believe we're going to maybe talk about this slightly during our discussion today. This is The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which, as you can tell, if you've heard any of the previous conversations, I think this is at least on my top 10 anticipated. Mike, I think it's even on yours. I think it might have even made Andy's, maybe like an honorable mention. The basic premise of this... Oh, I'm sorry, are we going to talk about this later?
Yes, yeah, we have a lot more information on it to talk about than we had last time.
Yes, that's
obviously, we're much closer to its actual release, so there's a lot to go over that we didn't know before.
Okay, good. Then enough said for now, and moving on. That's good. You'll get filled in. But yes, it was moved from January to August, so we don't have much to fill in yet. So we're gonna move right along as we get into February of this year. We get M. Night Shyamalan's newest film, Knock at the Cabin. I did see this. I'm giving it a 6. Not that I disliked it. I think I kept expecting it to be more than it ended up producing. I just thought, I don't know, I just thought I kept waiting for there to be more to it. It wasn't bad what it was. I don't know, that was my reaction to it as I saw it. And I'll leave it at that. Mike, what did you think? Did you see this?
Yes, I did see this. And part of the reason I think that, to what you said about expecting it to be more than what it was, is because typically that's an M. Night Shyamalan thing.
Sure.
Is that there's more than meets the eye. But this is, I'm not sure if it's the first time M. Night Shyamalan's done it, but this is, the reason for it is this is based on a book. He did not write the story that is here.
Right.
The book is called Cabin at the End of the World. And he didn't really diverge too much from that. I give the movie a 5 out of 10. I feel like the acting in it was good enough, and the story's okay. But man, I don't know. Like I think what I said about it on the last episode, if you were listening, some people just want to watch the world burn, and I'd be one of them. I think disagreeing with the characters' choices really brought it down for me. So,
as we got into March, we went. Well, I would say we went back to Woodsboro, but we didn't. We went to New York City this time for Scream 6. I'll lead on this one as well, because I feel I was very skeptical about this early on. I mean, it had only been like 14 months between Scream 5 and 6. And I was very skeptical about how good of a quality product can you put out, how good of an idea can you have, fostered. I was pleasantly surprised. I found myself buying in to the way that they found their way into the story, to find a unique way to do it. So I saw it. I'm giving it a 7.5. That literally could go up or down upon future viewings, but my initial one time was pretty favorable.
I also saw it, and I actually gave it a 7.5 as well. To me, this is a step up from the last movie. I was not a huge fan of Scream 5. This one I think is much better all around and more entertaining. I had a more fun watching this one. I mean, it's a slasher film. They're not really that scary, at least for me. Like, slasher films aren't scary. They're fun.
Yep.
They're kind of, it's that kind of adrenaline you get from them.
Sure.
And it definitely does a better job at that. And yeah, I'd recommend this one over 5. But obviously, the characters are continuing, and to get the story, you have to watch 5 first. This is
Yeah.
like, you honestly kind of have to watch most of the series to understand everything that goes on with each successive Scream movie. Otherwise, you're going to be a little lost in places.
Yeah, that's fair.
But pretty good. Not
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so we got three left. We're gonna get through these quick. A movie called Unwelcome is actually something we did not talk about. Well, actually, let me back up for a moment. We did not talk about Infinity Pool on the last episode in September because we didn't know about it at the time.
Yeah.
Sort of the same thing with Unwelcome. There had been things out there about it, but it was very cloudy for a long time as to when it was going to be released, how it would be released. Mike actually informed me as we're getting ready for this that it came out and it was accessible. I didn't even know that. I had been waiting to like keep my eye on it, but he found it on Amazon. So it's there. So I did not see this and I can't weigh in on it. But Mike, you have. So what do you think?
So just to give you a quick on Unwelcome, you have Hannah John Kamen as the lead actress here, and if you remember her at all, she was Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and she was in Ready Player One, and she's shown up in a lot of things. You would recognize her to see her, even if the name isn't the most familiar. The movie itself, I gave an 8 out of 10. It is...
Wow, okay.
You know, it's one of those things that's not what I expected it to be. And in a very good way. I expected this movie from watching previews and everything, what I had seen of it, I expected it to be way cheesier than it actually wound up being. So when it wasn't, and it wasn't necessarily going in directions that I thought it would from the previews. Like, the previews led me to believe incorrect things about where they were going. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but the previews were slightly misleading on what the movie was. I was expecting it to be like, well, I watched that. Oops. But it was absolutely not. It was really well done. The acting's excellent. The story is really good and fun.
Okay.
It was a good watch.
High praises. Okay. Wonderful. The next quick entry is another that we had mentioned, but again, either had incorrect information or it was delayed. Salem's Lot, another Stephen King adaptation remake, was not released in the spring of 2023 as we initially thought it was going to be. I think we might have a quick note of update in the second half of the show about that. So
yep, we've got some good updates to talk about on that one.
Yep. Okay, moving on, we have Evil Dead Rise, which puts us into April. We're catching up to modern time. Evil Dead Rise, I saw this, I'll be honest, it's not that I didn't like this, but there's something about it that also at the end of the day, like, didn't push it over into really good. Or like, okay, so what the hell do they do now? And it's hard to compartmentalize, you know, having watched the Evil Dead trilogy for 20 years.
And then you had that awful remake.
To be fair, well, I'll say this. I saw the remake once, and I saw it in theaters. I don't remember disliking it, but I also haven't watched it since. So, I mean, you know, I haven't been compelled to go back.
I don't think I like that any of the times that I've watched it.
Fair. But so with this, I'm giving Evil Dead Rise a 6.5. I want the idea of it to succeed, and not that this didn't succeed, but like I said, it just, for some reason for me, it just didn't push from, oh, that was good, to, oh, that was really goddamn good. So that's just where it lands, and I hope if they continue that, for me, that they do find an element that pushes it into like, that was freaking awesome. It makes me go, you know, all bro on it. Mike, how about you?
One, you had the option there when you just said makes me go all. You just should have gone groovy. That was there.
Missed. Yep. Yes, it was. You're not wrong.
I filled in the gap though.
Thank you.
But I would have one question for you. Did you watch Ash versus Evil Dead?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you're into the universe. You love this kind of content and everything. It wasn't because like it's different than other horror content. Evil Dead stuff is definitely on different levels of like depraved.
Yes.
In its own way. Like there's horror movies go a lot of directions with being depraved. Evil Dead does it in its own specific kind of way. It's very bloody, it's very gory, it's very but at the same time like gets said.
Very satirical, almost like self-satirical while it's happening it too.
Yes, yeah, they're going to say things that are like over the top and it's meant to draw as much fear as laughter. I loved this.
Okay.
I thought this was the Evil Dead sequel that I had always wanted them to kind of make, compared to what we got with the kind of remake. Is the way I look at that. Kind of I don't know. Is that a remake? That one, I guess it kind of was. Whereas this movie, in and of itself, is really fun. It's good. It does its thing, and I feel like, without spoiling anything, it opens up the door for more movies. They set some plot points where it will make sense to hit some other directions in the future, and some of them could be really fun.
Understood. So what's your rating?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Awesome.
9 out of 10.
All right, we only got one more really, and then one more update, and then folks, we're going into the second half of the show because we're going to be done with the past, because we're caught up to the present almost, and then we're going into the future. So we're almost there. Mike, you wanted to talk about The Pope's Exorcist, another recently released, I think this was like end of April, mid-April, end of April 2023. I did not get to this. I did think the idea looked interesting. I would like to catch it at some point. This, by now it's probably 6 hours away from being on Redbox or some streaming service. The way things run anymore, so it'll be available soon, I'm sure, and I'll get to it eventually. But you did see it. You wanted to bring it up. What did you think?
Yes. Well, so for anyone who doesn't know, the draw with this movie is Russell Crowe is playing the Exorcist in this movie. This is like a different level of that type of movie. I'm usually not a big fan of the exorcism type movies. But you put Russell Crowe into it and you have my attention, because how the hell do you get Russell Crowe to sign on for that? So that got my attention, got me there to watch it. This is a story about, again, it toes that line of true story. The story's about an actual man that held the actual position at the Vatican. And, they talk, they give you little blurbs about his real life, before and after the movie, like in like the opening thing about who he is. And then at the end of the movie, they give you like the little, this is what happened after the events in the movie kind of thing.
Okay.
So very interesting. And it goes into a little bit of the detail of the type of stuff that interests me about like the political atmosphere within the Vatican surrounding things like exorcism, which are like officially parts of the Catholic Church, but like it's something that is, like more on the supernatural side than they're used to dealing with. So it's interesting to see the inner workings around that, as well as the overlaid story about the other characters in it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Russell Crowe does not disappoint. He's also not believable as an Italian, but that's just my personal.
Did he do as well as an Italian as he does as a Greek playing Zeus in Thor?
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Gladiator in that direction.
Oh no. because his Zeus, man, that was a choice.
It was, and it was satirical, and it was made to be
Sure.
funny. Whereas, like, he's trying to be a serious Italian here and like speak Italian and things, and it's kind of like he's tough to buy. You know what I mean? Like, he pulls it off well enough that it didn't pull me out of the movie. But yeah, like all around, if you're into exorcism type movies, definitely catch this one. If you just like Russell Crowe, I'd also just catch this one because he can carry a movie. The dude can carry a movie. Like, he just can, and he does that here. So
good to know. I'll add it to the recommendations. So really, that is the end of what we could see. The last thing that we'll mention, that will be in our future discussion coming up in a moment, is we had talked about rumors about what we thought was an in-production continuation of the Insidious franchise, just generally at the time called Insidious 5. We do have new information about that we'll get into in a moment. As we conclude this section, though, Mike, real quick, I'm going to go over some of our stats here. So there were, in total, it looks like there was 19 of the projects we just talked about. There was 19 of them that were actually available to be viewed. That they had been released. You have seen 17 of them.
Yeah,
which is quite impressive. The only ones you missed was Orphan First Kill and Chucky Season 2. And you're over. So you saw 89% of what you could have seen, and your average rating across all of them is pretty much a solid 7. So you're a generally generous.
Yeah, I'll agree with what you said. It was a good time to be a horror fan this past year.
Fair.
I don't think that's normal for what I would normally rate things, but it was a good time.
Mine's a little bit lower. I only got 14 of the 19, so I only saw 3/4 of it. So you definitely got ahead of me there. Of the 14 that I did see, I guess I'm a little less generous. my average rating is a 6.2. Yeah, I had very few in the 7 or 8 range. Most of mine, hit that just right in the middle 5, 6, 6.5 mark. But there you go. So that concludes the first half and the catch up. Again, that's the past and the present. And Mike this time is going to take the lead to walk us into the future. So whenever you're ready.
So we've got a pretty solid list of horror movies to talk about that are coming up. Starting, we're going to go in chronological order of when they are expected to release, and then we've got a few at the bottom that have no official release date but are definitely being made to mention as well. So cool. Starting with as soon as June 2nd. We're recording this on May 18th, so this is 2 weeks away. We have The Boogeyman. This is based on the Stephen King novel of the same title. And I'll give you the little synopsis that IMDb has. I'm going to try to avoid as many spoilers and such like that as I can, but I feel like IMDb synopsis is not a spoiler. That's just a tag to draw you in. Yeah, it's a tag to draw you in.
Mm-hmm.
This is a man tries to uncover the mystery behind the apparent murder of his children. This is going to be starring Josh's favorite, David Dastmalchian.
Shit, yes, I'm there.
Who you may know from many things. He's been around. Most recently, and maybe among my favorites, is Polka Dot Man in Suicide Squad.
Yep, and he'll be appearing later this year again. I think later this year he'll be reprising a role in Dune Part 2, because he got in early with Denny V in the movie Prisoners, and he's kept him in just about every one of his projects since then. Dastmalchian is literally, I'm not kidding you, he is enough to get me to go see something that I otherwise might not really greatly be interested in. So almost enough said for me, but please continue.
Yeah, that's fair. The other listed star is Sophie Thatcher. And the only thing that I could find that you might recognize her from is she was in the Book of Boba Fett, playing the character Drash. If you remember, like the kind of like gang of like Pike bandits that end up.
Oh, that become everyone like joked they like looked like the Power Rangers at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
She
okay.
Is one of them named Drash.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Prominently featured one of the leaders, not like a side character or something. So she was in a significant production. This is not her first go around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being directed by a man named Rob Savage, who is also directed Host and Dashcam, of which I have not seen either. Not The Host. Not The Host.
Was it
Host.
Host, the adaptation of the Stephenie Meyer book?
You know what? I will have to look that up because I was not familiar.
Oh no, this is I'm seeing it here. It's from 2020. Okay,
Yes.
no, this looks like another like Unfriended or something. Like it's a web. It's like all takes place on a webcam.
Yes,
kind of
that
thing.
Is the
Okay.
Host that he directed, and Dashcam was the same kind of filming. So
Got
like
it.
Dashcam had that. I've not seen either of them, but I had to look them up for the purposes of the show.
Sure.
They are their own sort of style. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's coming out June 2nd. Very soon you'll be able to get to see this. If you know the novel by Stephen King, you probably know more about it than I do because I haven't read that book. Have you?
I have not. I will say. I mean, we just mentioned it a couple minutes ago with Salem's Lot. It wasn't necessarily the It remake that blew the doors wide open. It was already in progress before that, but the success, both commercially and critically, of It, I think made it inevitable that we're going to keep getting Stephen King adaptations and remake adaptations for quite a number of years going forward. So on the surface, I could probably take or leave this. But some of these other elements kind of make it seem like, okay, this one might land pretty well.
Yeah, and you know, on that note of Stephen King, we're getting a lot of the remakes. I hope we're getting some more because you got some IP there to work with Stephen King that is extremely good.
Yeah,
we've seen The Stand. I think they should leave that alone. We've seen Needful Things, and as much as I think, man, they could go that route and do really good with it today, I still feel like you could just leave that alone. The original one was, the movie they made was pretty damn good.
Mhm.
Take some of the lesser known Stephen King stuff and start fucking with that, man. Give me Tommy Knockers.
Again, yeah.
Well, yeah, the original Tommy Knockers was not. It was. I mean, it has its '80s cheese thing going on.
Yeah, point taken.
So like, update. It could use updating. I guess that's
Fair.
the point. So yeah, that'll be out soon. Go check that out if you wish. The next one you can watch at home. On Netflix, June 28th. We have a movie called Run Rabbit Run, which you can actually read reviews. I'm not going to tell you about those reviews. You can look those up for yourself if you want to ahead of time. But this did have a release at film festivals and had a international release already back in January. However, it has not been available to view in the U.S. or any English-speaking country, as far as I know. Currently, until June 28th. So, this is...
It is English language, is it not?
Yes, it is. I'm just saying, like, it's not been made available to the wide public in any
Understood.
capacity, but it has been made available to, like,
Other markets.
Select audiences have had a chance to see this in the theater.
Gotcha.
So again, I'll give you the little IMDb synopsis here. It is a fertility doctor is perplexed by the behavior of her young daughter. And then, of course, things will happen.
Followed by stuff.
Yes, it's a horror movie. Things are going to happen. We don't know exactly what, but stuff's going to happen. This movie's going to be starring Sarah Snook. You may recognize her from Succession if you watch that show. I do not. But she was the title character in the movie Jezebel several years ago. and she was in The Winchester, the horror movie that inexplicably got what's her name, Helen Mirren, into it. She was in that as well.
Yeah, I liked that.
And it is being directed by a woman named Dana Reed.
Okay.
And that's either Dana or it's everybody working with the movie having a spell check problem, and it's Diana. I'm assuming it's Dana because I didn't see it wrote differently anywhere else. It's just a little bit of a strange spelling. So Dana Reed. The only thing I could find that Dana Reed has worked on in the past is Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, okay.
She directed 4 episodes of that show. But as far as a feature film goes, this is her debut. So we'll get to know more about that then. There's not a whole lot else to say, though, because we really don't know much about what she's done.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I will say there is a trailer on IMDb for this right now, and I never ended up seeing it. You did, but there was a movie we talked about in like the last year or two, called, it was with Noomi Rapace. It was the one like with the goats.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
I think it was either just called like Goat or Sheep or something like that. But I never ended up seeing it. But the mood, the style of the filmmaking, the cinematography, what this trailer for Run Rabbit Run reminds me of that sect, that flavor of horror in a way. So it looks like it could be a little unsettling in kind of interesting ways. But yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I otherwise didn't hear about this before this.
Yeah, it definitely has that feeling, and yeah, you either like that kind of the thing I would hearken it to, like, I think that movie was called Lamb.
Lamb, that was it.
Because it like I was thinking goat, and I'm like, no, it wasn't goat because it was definitely a lamb that she's messing around with in the movie. So yeah, like it's got that weird vibe going to it. And I personally hope it lands somewhere in between Lamb and like, why is my brain all of a sudden Midsummer? I'm hoping it lands somewhere between those two in terms of how it handles the weird shit.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
And moving on to our next, we talked about this briefly. Josh mentioned it, and this is coming out July 7th. This is Insidious: The Red Door. So if you're listening to a horror podcast and you don't know what Insidious is, I don't know, you're also living under a rock too, I suppose.
A little bit.
This series it's like The Conjuring. They're kind of the two big things in horror going on over the last decade or so. And yeah, this is a direct sequel. This is coming back to the Lamberts, and their son Dalton is beginning college. And that's all the more I want to say about it. There's a trailer you can watch if you so please to find out more about it and where they're going. But it has the original cast back. So you've got Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne, Ty Simpkins, and Lynn Shay will be back as well. However, the interesting part here is Lee Wannell did write the story for this, but Patrick Wilson is making his directorial debut for this film.
The heck you say?
I find that to be very interesting, and it's probably because he feels strongly about the project and loves making these movies, and I'm very interested to see what he can do. He's a very good actor.
He is.
I think where this goes.
Yeah, I think he, not in a bad way per se, but I feel like he gets overlooked. People don't remember him. So I feel like he gets underrated sometimes, because when you think of movie stars, especially, you don't think of Patrick Wilson. But there's been very little that he's ever done that you could point to say, well, that wasn't good, or like, well, that was lackluster. That, missed the mark. That was like, bleh. He's got a really solid resume.
Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't always translate into being the best director.
True. Very true.
We won't know until we see it. And that's why I'm so interested, is because it sounds like it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's so
to check
weird
it
for
out.
me. It was so weird for me seeing. Seeing Ty Simpkins is so strange because like after Insidious, I didn't. It took me a few years to realize that, like after I saw Iron Man 3, and then a couple years later Jurassic World, I was like, wait a minute, that was the 8-year-old from the first Insidious movie. He's really good in those first two. Like as a child actor, put in those kinds of scenarios, he's actually really good. And then you see him, he kind of disappeared for a few years in a way, if you want to think about that. And then you see him like have this no line cameo at the end of Avengers Endgame that he's like grown up and he's a person. You're like, who is that? I got to be one of the many people who like went to IMDb after seeing Endgame to find out who the hell that was. But it was his character from Iron Man 3 returning for spoilers, for Tony's funeral. So to like see him as like, now I will say the one thing that's a little hard for me to buy from this trailer is they set it up as though they say, oh, it's 10 years after the last story, which is true. Insidious 2 did come out in 2013, so that's kind of badass. But they write it as though the character of the kid is only 18 years old going to college. He clearly looks like he's 25.
Yeah, but I mean that's common. That
It is.
I allowed. Like, it's not that big a deal to me.
It wasn't
like,
huge. I'm hoping like once I actually see it,
He
I'm not like preoccupied with that idea. But it'll be
definitely
really cool to
grew
see what
up
it does.
a lot since
Very much.
Endgame. Like,
Yeah.
if he looked like he did in Endgame, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
I agree. But between Endgame and now, those 5 years, boy, they made a difference.
I will say, yeah.
He looks like an adult now. He doesn't look like a
Yeah.
kid anymore. So it might be.
Yeah,
but
that doesn't look
he's
like a
still
teenager
in college. It's still college. We're not talking about high
Yeah.
school. So it's
I could try to buy it, yeah. I will
Yeah.
say for if anyone hasn't, if it's been a while, or if you've never seen the Insidious movies, even if you're aware of them but never seen them, so there's the first one, then there's chapter 2, then there's chapter 3. Chapter 3 is a prequel to the other two. Then they move on to Insidious 4, called I think it's the last key.
it's something with a key.
Yeah, it's either Lost
It's a
Key
bit-
or I think it's Last Key. But and then as Mike said, this one, Insidious The Red Door, is a direct continuation from Insidious 2. All in all though, I think all 4 of them so far, they work as a fairly cohesive franchise. They really do. And those first 2 go back to back really, really well. I'm definitely going to revisit all 4 of them between now and July 7th. Because it's been
Agreed.
several years since I've seen any of them.
Agreed. I would say we will definitely do the same. And, it's Insidious and it's Patrick Wilson and the real cast. I say the real cast because the 4th one was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, I can see that.
Compared to the first 2. Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
those first 2 are set kind of a gold standard for the series. And seeing the original cast returning in full, I'm excited. I'm very excited to see this.
Definitely. You
But
and me both.
we do have to move on.
Ah,
We
no!
have a long list to get through here. And
No! All right.
perhaps one of the most interesting upcoming movies to me. There's others, but this is one of the most interesting ones on this list. Is called Cobweb,
Ooh,
coming out
okay.
on July 21st. Now,
I know
Cobweb
nothing about
is-
this.
Well, when I tell you who's in it, that'll change. So we'll go slow. We'll start with Cleopatra Coleman.
Okay.
Who, if you watched The Last Man on Earth and Infinity Pool, she was actually in Infinity Pool as well.
Okay.
Okay. And then we have Lizzie Kaplan, who for me I remember most from Now You See Me Too, but she's been in so many things.
Oh, yeah.
She's well known for comedy, actually, which is
She's
kind of-
she's Janice
She's been
from
in a
Mean
lot, though.
Girls.
Yeah.
If you know, she's Janice. Yeah, everyone knows Janice.
Yeah, because I totally watched Mean Girls, and I know who you're referring to.
Yeah.
But the most interesting person in this movie to me is Anthony Starr. Yes.
Of
Homelander.
The Boys.
Yes,
Okay.
Homelander
Okay.
is going to be the star of this movie. And it's a directorial debut from a man named Samuel Bowden.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot to go on there. And the synopsis here is a boy who hears voices in his head decides to unleash them on his abusive parents. And
if I had to take a shot in the dark, am I probably going to presume that Lizzie and Anthony are the abusive parents?
that is the assumption I have as well. I did not look further into it to spoil that, but I mean, I would assume, since they are the two, top listed stars, that they would be the parents. Maybe Cleopatra Coleman and Star are the parents, and Lizzie Kaplan's a psychiatrist or something, or
Makes
some
sense.
version
Okay,
of that.
sure.
I don't know for sure.
Yep.
But seeing him have a chance to play an abusive parent, man, that could be. He's so good at Homelander. That's really the only thing I know him for, and he is so
Same.
damn good at that. I am
Yeah.
so excited to see him do something else. And having it be a horror movie like this, it has me very excited to see, because that dude has been so fucking good as Homelander. Getting him into a leading role in my favorite genre of movie, oh boy. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Got it. Yeah,
Thoughts?
I mean, you piqued my interest with that. Not a whole lot else. I mean, my mind is just going to spin with that basic premise. It could go very interesting. It could be robust. It could also, unfortunately, it could be like good performances, but in a simplistic, depressing,
Oh, yeah.
but like not otherwise provocative script. So it could either elevate or deflate, as I'll put it. But at least the foundation you've laid out there, like I said, you have my attention.
That's fair. The next one should have everybody's attention, because twice this year we are getting Nicolas Cage as a frontman in a horror movie.
Good.
This one releasing on July 28th. It is called Sympathy for the Devil.
Okay.
And this will be Nicolas Cage starring alongside Joel Kinnaman. If you're unfamiliar with Joel Kinnaman played Rick Flag in the Suicide Squad movies. That is an easy way for you to know he's been in, again, lots of other things.
Yep.
And this is being directed by Yuval Adler. Yuval Adler has actually worked with Joel Kinnaman a couple other times in the past, and I guess that's kind of the connection for them. I don't know where Nicolas Cage comes in. He just kind of knows fucking everybody, so he gets in.
That's true. He's Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
Yeah. But Yuval Adler has other directorial notes are the sequence. Wow. The sequence. The Sequence We Keep and The Operative are the two movies I drew from him. I believe The Operative also starred Joel Kinnaman.
I watched that.
The
okay.
synopsis for this movie. After being forced to drive a mysterious passenger at gunpoint, a man finds himself in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, wherein it becomes clear that not everything is as it seems.
Okay.
That's where we're at. And we get Nicolas Cage opposite Joel Kinnaman. I'm assuming Nicolas Cage is going to be that mysterious passenger because...
Sure.
Come on. It's got to be Nicolas Cage. And Joel Kinnaman probably the driver.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting to me. It's Nicolas Cage. I'm going to be there to watch it just because he's been on a roll lately. He's been doing really good now that he's not broke and taking every role that he can possibly have thrown at him.
Because he needs
like
to.
he was for a while.
Yeah.
So he's actually been back to doing really well. So yeah, I'm fairly interested in this. I don't know about seeing it in a theater. But if I got nothing else to do that weekend, maybe.
We just...
Again, that's July 28th.
July 28th, marking it now. I just made a comment about Patrick Wilson, right, in this regard. But Joel Kinnaman is not a household name. He's not obscure, but he's not A-list, everybody knows Joel Kinnaman, something comes to mind, etc. Again, his Rick Flag roles in the 2 Suicide Squad films, particularly I think in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, there was many parts, but he was a very big shining star for me in that movie. I loved every scene Rick Flag was in.
He's good. He's got charisma.
Yeah, he knows how to hold a scene. If you get a chance, watch both seasons, but watch the first season of Altered Carbon on Netflix. The character that Joel Kinnaman plays is we'll say the spirit of the character can move bodies, so it's inhabited and portrayed by a different actor in season 2. But season 1 was really cool. I knew nothing about that show, just picked it up one day, and he's the lead, and he's really, really good in that. This is a combination of actors that I wouldn't ever think to put together, but now that you say it, I'm like, yes, I want that. Why haven't we had that before? And calling it Sympathy for the Devil, and this like interesting but still sort of vague idea. Like, I just rewatched out of nowhere, just on a whim, I rewatched Drive Angry like a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god, if you've never seen Drive Angry, listeners, it's like a kind of supernatural, you could kind of maybe, it's not even a horror. I'm not going to say it's a horror. It's a supernatural action movie in a way. It is so ridiculous, but so fun, and it still kind of keeps itself grounded in a way. It's just 90 minutes of Nicolas Cage fun in really good ways. It's from like 2011. It's awesome. Fucking watch it. As soon as this podcast is over, go watch Drive Angry. And then count down on your calendar to Sympathy for the Devil. Because this sounds like it could be just as much I don't want to overuse the word adrenaline per se, but just that kind of unapologetic, like balls to the wall action fun.
Mandy.
Yes, kind of along the Mandy lines as well. Those kinds of things. This is cool. I'm glad you brought this to my attention.
I'm glad to do it too, but we do again have to move on. Long list.
All right.
This one's going to be kind of quick. This next one. Because there's not a whole lot out there on it. This is a movie called Talk to Me. This is also coming out on July 28th, starring Sophie Wilde and Joe Bird, both young actors, actress. Don't have a lot of stuff on their resume. Like, they look like they're teenagers. I don't recognize them from anything, and most of the stuff they had on their IMDb page was not anything you'd recognize. Like, it seemed like all shorts, things like that. As well as similarly for the Philippou brothers. I hope I'm saying that right. It looks like Philippou, so I'm going with Philippou. Philippou. That's pretty much the only two ways I could see to say it. This is their feature film directorial debut. They also did a lot of shorts, like little 6-minute things here and there. And the synopsis for this is: when a group of friends discovers a way to summon spirits with an embalmed hand, things begin to go wrong because whatever bad comes from summoning spirits with an embalmed hand.
Okay, I've seen this. Yeah, there's a trailer out for this. I saw it in theaters recently. Okay.
Yeah. There's just not a lot of like info about the people that are making it and starring in it. Like, there's just not much.
Got it.
To get you hyped up or unhyped or anything for it. It's pretty much all new people. So, could be good, could be bad. See it on July 28th and let us know. Because following that, we had talked already about the last voyage of the Demeter.
Yes.
That is actually coming out now on August 11th. This is going to be starring Corey Hawkins, Aisling Franciosi, Liam Cunningham, and again, David Dastmalchian.
Yes.
Who will be playing Wojciech, which is a really cool role for him to take on. And this is being directed by Andre Ovredal, who gave us Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the telling of the old books from back in the day, which was really good, and The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which, if you haven't seen, is actually a really solid horror film.
Okay.
And my synopsis for this movie is it's Dracula's boat ride. It's a part of the book. Like, it's just a part of the original Bram Stoker's Dracula novel. It's about the journey across the sea on a ship named the Demeter that is carrying Dracula in a coffin to his new home at Carfax Abbey. And obviously, it's Dracula, and it's the last voyage of the Demeter. I'm sure you can get the idea of what's going to happen here. So I'm just interested because this is one chapter from the book. It's just one chapter, and they're turning it into a whole movie. So I'm interested to see where it goes. It should be fun, and I'm very excited to finally get there. And of course, as I've said before, this was in my top 10 most anticipated. You can hear a lot more of my thoughts on it if you go listen to that episode.
Yeah, and or again, I think it's episode 274 from last September when we first breached this. We shared a lot of that info and went a bit deep on it as well. Same. I think it's just a really cool idea. And I just can't wait to see how it gets executed. I think it's gonna be really cool.
I agree. And following that one up, just 2 days later is the expected release date. I don't know why it's listed as expected, but for whatever reason, they still have expected next to this. So if it changes, at least they did warn me so that I could warn you.
Okay.
Of August 13th. This is for This is where I'm not sure. It's either a sequel, a requel, or a reboot. I don't know.
I was going to ask you about this one.
I did not find anything that definitively tells me a yes or no on that. But this is the Strangers. This is the same as The Strangers and Strangers Prey at Night. It's the same film series. I just don't have information about whether this is which way it's going. The synopsis is a couple driving cross country stop in an Airbnb. And then I just inserted see previous Strangers plots for the rest. Because
I saw that. You know, I can't see anything that differentiates it from literally just being a remake of the first one, basically, in a way. Like you take the premise of why the people are at the place, but it really seems like exactly the same. So yeah, unless we get more information about whether this is, the same group that was responsible or involved, we'll say, in the previous two movies. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know how to categorize this.
I agree. And on that front, I mean, the previous movies, I didn't really enjoy the first one, but I thought Strangers Prey at Night was fantastic. So, for me, it's a little bit of a mixed bag because the one with Liv Tyler, the one that, Prey at Night, that was good. This one, however, we don't know yet if it's going to be good or bad. We'll find out. I feel like they're 50-50 so far for me. But we're starring a young woman named Madeline Petch. She, if you watch the series Riverdale, is one of the stars of that show. I do not watch that, so I couldn't even tell you which character she plays, but she is on Riverdale, and she has been there for several seasons, so she is, it said like 40-some episodes or something. So I'm assuming she's one of the main characters if she's in that many. And then we have Gabriel, depending on how they say it, Basso. The only notable thing I could find was that he was one of the kids in Super 8.
Oh God! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that it's a long time ago. That was all I could really find to go off of there. Obviously an adult now. And this is being directed by Rennie Harlin, which also doesn't give me a lot of happy feelings. Rennie Harlin has a very long list of work as a director. Among it is The Exorcist: The Beginning, The Covenant, and The Legend of Hercules.
Oh, wait
yes,
a minute. Is
The Legend of Hercules. That horrible, awful Legend of Hercules.
No, the one with The Rock?
No, worse than that. The other one that was even worse. that had the blonde dude playing Hercules.
Oh, Kellen Lutz.
Yes, that's his name.
I just found it. Yeah.
That Legend of Hercules movie that is even worse than The Rock's Hercules movie.
I'm looking for The Covenant. Is that? Oh God, it's that one. Okay. Sarah and Leslie love that movie, so that would be a selling point for them.
Yes, but he also directed The Legend of Hercules. So,
but they don't know that, or they don't care.
Well, they could be listening to this. But yeah, I mean, The Covenant was okay. It wasn't horrible to me. It just wasn't great either. But The Legend of Hercules is just so objectively bad that I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, okay, they gave this to this guy, sure. But again, he does have a long list of other movies that he's done. I just pulled.
He does, yeah. I will make up. I'll try to give him a mulligan for that because he directed Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, and the Deep Blue Sea was pretty good. I do like Deep Blue Sea. So we'll go from one interesting director to another. August 25th, we have a movie coming out called They Listen. Now, I'll hit you already with, this is listed as plot under wraps. That is the IMDb info on this. They have not released shit about the plot for They Listen.
But they have an expected release date of like 3
August
months 25th. From now?
Yeah, wow. I guess they're just waiting to release that trailer.
Okay.
Has an interesting cast and an interesting director. So the cast for this movie is Keith Carradine, who, again, you should know who Keith Carradine is. I'm not going to go into terrible detail there. Catherine Watterson, who is of Fantastic Beasts fame.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Lindholm, who you would probably most recognize from episodes of The Big Bang Theory. But she's been on several other things. And John Cho, who you would recognize as Mr. Sulu from the new Star Trek films. The J.J. Abrams films.
Harold
from
Harold
and Kumar, yes. And many other things that he's done.
Right.
It is being directed by Chris Weitz.
Who's Chris Weitz?
Now, Chris Weitz is the director of such movies as The Golden Compass.
The
Down
bad one?
to Earth. Well, I mean, that's the only one that's out there, isn't it?
As a film, that's true, yeah.
Yeah. The show is not the same. Yes, but The Golden Compass, the movie. Down to Earth with Chris Rock, if you remember that one.
Do not.
And most interestingly, for somebody coming into a horror movie, he directed American Pie. The first one.
Which is also where John Cho came from.
Yes, and it's probably part of that. To me, that's interesting. We're getting the guy that directed American Pie making a horror movie almost 30 years later. So I find that to be an interesting setup. And the cast, as I said, is kind of interesting. So looks like could be something to keep an eye on once there's actual plot details out there for us to decide whether we're interested and invested or just like, oh, that's a curiosity and whatever. I'll see it eventually.
Yeah, touche.
But moving on, we have the next entry in the Conjuring franchise. This will be the 9th film, and it is a direct sequel to The Nun. This is The Nun 2. Now, this will be starring somebody named Anna Popplewell, who I could not find much on. Storm Reed, who is best known for A Wrinkle in Time. And then Thaisa Farmiga is returning again from the last Nun movie. And Bonnie Aarons, who plays the Nun, will also be here for this movie. This is being directed by Michael Chavez. And the only things I found on Michael Chavez that were of note and interesting for this was he directed The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, and The Curse of La Llorona.
Also part of the Conjuring universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the two movies that this guy has of note that he's directed are both in the Conjuring universe alongside the other Conjuring movies and the Annabelle movies. So now he's getting his shot here. And other than Annabelle, he'll have a hand in the whole universe at this point, which
good point.
maybe he'll get an Annabelle movie next and get to do them all. And as far as a plot synopsis, this is pretty much just being listed out there as a sequel to The Nun. There's not a ton of information yet. There may be a trailer. I did not look for one because I know, like, it's one of those things. I know I'm gonna see it, and I don't need to see a trailer. So it's out there. I don't know what to make of it at this point. But the first Nun movie was actually pretty good. Thijs Farmiga's decent. And it did its thing, and it wasn't bad. It was not bad.
And I will say, I clicked through the writers on this, and I won't go into the other things they've done and blah, 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 but they have a lot of overlap with each other in other things they've done in the past, but collectively, they actually have some pretty good chops among them. So I think I've been kind of, I don't want to say like let down, but it's like lackluster by most of the non-Conjuring verse movies. But I don't know, maybe with some of the pedigree that they're bringing to this one, they'll find something, to be a little more compelling for me.
I agree. Next up, I want to move on to what is probably my second most anticipated movie on this entire list, with Insidious being the highest priority because, man,
okay.
That's just a horror franchise there. But this is also a franchise, one that is bringing back the world-famous Hercule Poirot. And this time, he's attending a seance. And this is A Haunting in Venice. So it's another Agatha Christie novel. This one gets here because it's a haunting. So it gets here. It's on this list because it's a haunting. It counts. This is coming out on September 15th, starring Kelly Riley, who you may know from Yellowstone, the series. And she also played Mary Watson in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies. But also we have Michelle Yeoh and Tina Fey and Jamie Dornan and, of course, Kenneth Branagh. And, of course, it's being directed by Kenneth Branagh, as the others have. And you should, at this point, if you've seen A Murder on the Orient Express and A Death on the Nile, kind of know what you're getting into with a Hercule Poirot movie. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's not something to miss. It's going to be good. Like, Kenneth Branagh is honestly one of the best filmmakers of our time, in my personal opinion. Since I've been a kid, the guy's been making movies, and every time I seem to enjoy them. Even when it's Shakespeare, I enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's stuff. He was good. He could make Shakespeare interesting. So, obviously, this is one I will be in the theater for, probably on opening night, because it's going to be a good one.
That's the best. That's the best time to see horror is with, in my opinion, is if you want to see it in a theater, do it opening weekend evenings. Hit that Friday or Saturday evening. Afternoons will be okay, but there's something about a crowd that really, and it does it for a lot of movies, I understand, but like seeing Mission Impossible is not going to be elevated for me that much by seeing it with a packed theater. There's a lot to say about certain horror movies, in certain subgenres of horror, that it can really make a big difference. And I think specifically the mood of this is prime for that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things, like, for me, Mission Impossible, like as you had said, is a theater movie because of the experience of seeing it. The crowd adds nothing to that. I could watch it at home if I had the same, Dolby or IMAX screen to watch it on at home. I'd be just as pleased watching it, probably 100 times more pleased just watching it at home alone. If I had that screen, that'd be amazing. But as far as movies like this go, Kenneth Branagh will make this a Hollywood spectacle type movie. He'll get a much bigger budget than probably any other movie on this list.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And it will be well shot. It will be pretty to look at, and it will also be a well put together, well rounded up story by the end. This will be a satisfying watch. And I hope because for me, I like Murder on the Orient Express better than Death on the Nile, even though I still like Death on the Nile.
Same.
So I'm hoping this maybe can be my favorite of the series. I'm hoping. We'll see. We'll see.
When we did our 2023 anticipated, and I brought this movie up on mine, we briefly talked about the idea of the tonal shift from those other two movies you just mentioned, just being kind of straightforward whodunits, where I'm sure there's some element of that. There's something to solve. There's something to figure out from this. There might be a murder. Who knows? But this, at least from the one trailer that they put out, this just seems very, very straightforward, like it's made as like a supernatural thriller. And so I'm interested to see his take on making a movie like that, because I don't think he's really done something like that before.
Right. As far as I know, he has not, but he also has a very deep list of
Quite true.
Director and writer credits.
Yeah.
So I didn't dig all the way through to see if there's any other horror stuff in there that I don't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Kenneth Branagh makes a movie, you probably should be there watching it. Whether it's horror or not, you should be there. Moving on from there, we have another movie we mentioned earlier, Salem's Lot. Now we're getting into 3 movies here that may actually release before the end of our list. The final few movies on our list come in October. This has a 2023 release date, but does not have a specified time for that release date yet. The movie's finished filming, it's done, it's in that phase of when's it going to come out. So Salem's Lot is starring Lewis Pullman, who was in Strangers Pray at Night, which we had just talked about, and Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh, he was.
And he's starring alongside Spencer Treat Clark, who, for me, I still most remember Spencer as the kid in Gladiator. When I see him every time, he was his son in Gladiator. But he was also in Unbreakable, Mystic River, and a whole bunch of other things where he's never kind of the leading man, but he's always there, and he always performs really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Pilu Asbayek, who you may know from Game of Thrones as Euron Greyjoy.
Oh, wait, is that Uncle Asshole? That's Uncle Asshole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's Uncle Asshole from...
Thank you.
Yeah. And Alfred Woodard, who you may know from...
okay.
Many, 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 many things. You should know her name.
You should.
If you
Hope
don't,
so.
you know her face, I'm certain. And it's being directed by Gary Dauberman. The only notable credit on directing for Gary is Annabelle Comes Home, which was actually really good. Among the Annabelle movies, I think it's the best, personally. So, the synopsis here is a writer travels to a town of vampires. That's Salem's Lot. If you've seen the old movie, if you've read the book, you know what's going on here. It's a vampire movie. The old movie, man, it was okay back in the day, but it doesn't hold up. I watched it not long ago. Man, the special effects they used in those 80s vampire movies were just not great.
Real quick,
many instances.
Apologies, didn't mean to talk over you. Real quick
No, you're
sidebar.
fine. Go ahead.
There's somebody giving away a DVD in like a community, call it like an online yard sale kind of group I'm in.
Sure.
And but they were giving it away for free, and it was a 4-pack in the DVD box of Stephen King adapted films. I think Salem's Lot is in there. I've never actually seen it, but I don't even remember what the other 3 were.
Probably
and I think
Silver Bullet.
It wasn't even Cat's Eye. Like it was like
Cujo.
such. No, I've seen Cujo. It was like the most unnotable ones ever, and it was like I think it was at that era where they were made, like in the 80s, maybe early 90s. I actually haven't watched any of them yet, but with 2 Stephen King adaptations on our discussion today, I'm gonna have to crack into them soon. And based on what you're saying, like the quality of them, the production value and whatnot, and them not like I don't expect any of them to really be compelling or be really good, but they're going to be enjoyable in their own way, I'm assuming.
So yeah, I mean, for me, those '80s vampire werewolf type movies, like Silver Bullet, like Salem's Lot, there's one of those movies that holds up, which I've actually seen. We're not talking about it today because it's not supposed to be coming out until 24 or 25.
Mm.
And it also, I am at the same time pissed off and excited for it. And it's the only one of those movies I still say holds up, and that is The Lost Boys.
Okay.
That one holds up, even if the special effects don't. The movie itself holds up and stands on its own, aside from the special effects not being up to date. I don't know how I feel about them remaking it. However, Salem's Lot.
Yes.
I read the book, and a long time ago, but I have read the book, and I will say, if you're referring to whether or not you should see this movie based on the original movie, you're going to say no. If you're doing it based on the book, this is one of those book way better than the movie things that happened a lot back then you're probably still excited for this to get a proper adaptation this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Will it? I guess we got to wait and find out to blank date at sometime this year, whenever it does come out. The other movie I have that also has a 2023 release date that is finished and in the editing process, but does not have a specific. Actually, I have two others. My own spacing on this got me and made me look at it weird.
What's the first?
The first one is Shelby Oaks. Now, Shelby Oaks is going to be starring Keith David. Man, you should know who Keith David is by this time. The guy has one of the most compelling voices in the world. And Michael Beach, who is kind of an up-and-comer that's been in a lot of things as a side kind of character. And being directed by Chris Stuckman in his directorial debut.
Okay.
This synopsis, it was very long, and I kind of shortened it on my own here. To a woman's search for her long-lost sister finds her confronted with the possibility that a pretend childhood demon may have been real.
All right.
So I feel like I've seen this movie before. I feel like there's 100 movies, maybe not 100, but at least a dozen movies out there that are just like this. Like, I go back to my hometown and, oh shit, that thing I played with when I was a kid is actually real. Or, like, I feel like I've seen several movies that could fit that same synopsis.
Okay.
In like the last 10, 15 years, I feel like it's come up quite a bit. However, that does not mean that this does not seem interesting. And, somebody's directorial debut, getting a decent enough star power out of Keith David for it.
Yeah.
I'll check it out when it hits home viewing, but it is slated to come out sometime this year.
All right.
Any
Keep an eye out
thoughts?
for
Anything to say?
No.
There's not a lot there.
Not a ton yet, but yeah, if we get release dates or trailers, you guys know that if we mention something on the show like this, we do like to keep, pouring out the info as new stuff comes out. So if there's a trailer or anything else to share in the future, release dates, we will be sure to pass it along. Exactly.
Same goes for the next movie that is entitled Cuckoo. Or
oh boy.
Cuckoo. Cuckoo. The bird. It is starring Hunter Schafer, whose only notable credit is from Euphoria, the HBO Max series.
Oh, okay.
With Mary Jane Watson. What's her name? MJ from the new Spider-Man stuff. I don't know why I'm blank. Zendaya. That's her name.
Yes, I blanked too.
That HBO Max series with her. She's been in that. Dan Stevens, who you would recognize from Legion as the lead in that show. Excellent show. Watch that show. He is extremely good, so I'm excited for that. And then we have Martin Sokas, who was in Triple X, the first Triple X movie, And Lord of the Rings. He was Celeborn in Lord of the Rings. If you're not a Lord of the Rings fan, you're not really going to know who Celeborn is, but I knew I had to throw that in there for Josh because just the actor's name probably wouldn't have cut it, but
not as
he
much,
knows
but that's
who Celeborn is.
Yeah, that's one of the references that got me. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is going to be directed by Tillman Singer, who has only directed a few foreign language films, one named Luz, L-U-Z, Luz, and one named El Fin del Mundo. I do not know what that means, but the end of Del Mundo, whatever Del Mundo is. And this is one of the other ones I told you about that the plot is under wraps for. So, don't know. Not a lot to say about it. It's coming this year. If it's named Cuckoo, my guess would be it's going to deal with mental health, which plays right into Dan Stevens' wheelhouse, certainly after Legion. So, something to look out for, and perhaps we'll get you an update when they announce an actual release, and hopefully it doesn't get pushed back or anything like that.
Yep.
Moving on, we have 3 big hitters that we know are coming in October. I did not actually see a specific release date for any of them, but I do think the trailer that we just watched for one, which is the second one on my list here, did have a date, so we'll get to that. However, we have another horror franchise getting the Halloween treatment from the same director that gave Halloween the Halloween treatment of making a direct sequel to a movie that had several of its own sequels already, but this sequel will ignore those and treat the first movie as the only actual canon once again. And that is The Exorcist.
Oh.
And, of course, the director is David Gordon Green, who did the Halloween trilogy. And also, for those of you out there that maybe aren't as familiar with that, he also did Pineapple Express. Very, very fun Seth Rogen, James Franco movie from a while ago.
A literal stoner movie.
Yes. The Pineapple Express is a type of weed. And it's about weed. That movie is a stoner movie, and it's a lot of fun, though. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
So, yes, this is a direct sequel that's going to be ignoring all of the following sequels, and it's doing the same thing. It's bringing back one of the original stars, the mom, Ellen Burstyn, from the original movie, will be starring here alongside Leslie Odom Jr., who you may know from Murder on the Orient Express, Hamilton, and Glass Onion. So yeah, this is a direct sequel, and there's not a whole lot more there that they're saying about it at this time. So it doesn't list Linda Blair.
Okay.
So that, to me, is interesting. If it's a direct sequel and we're not gonna talk about Reagan, and I'm sure they'll talk about Reagan plenty, but not having Reagan cast, I don't know. Is Linda Blair alive? I don't even know.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's something I wouldn't even know. I'm saying they didn't cast her, but she might be dead. I don't know. So yeah, presumably we'll get some information about where Reagan is at this time.
Okay. Yep. It's a big gap to fill in.
Yes. But other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot of information about what's really going to be the plot. I'm assuming we're going to meet another demon of some sort that's going to possess somebody and need an exorcist. I'd say that's a safe bet.
Yeah, probably along those lines. I would only say, given the lack of anything else to go on at this point, and given what we just said earlier in the first half about our feelings about Halloween that David Gordon Green was handed the keys to, well, let me preface it also by saying I think I've watched The Exorcist once, and that's it.
Okay.
I've never seen any of the sequels, but even if something could pique my interest, to say like, oh well, okay, they haven't done like a direct actual Exorcist IP in a long time. What are they gonna do? Honestly, the fact that that guy's in charge of it doesn't really make me have high hopes that I'll enjoy it, at least in
But
the
here's
long
the
term.
thing. Just don't let him make sequels to this.
Maybe
Just
that's
do
the key.
thi-
Yeah, maybe that's
you
the
know,
key.
Do this one and stop.
Yeah, either hand it off or yeah, right, do one and dones, something.
Yeah, just stop here. That's all you gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's the case. Because The Exorcist is pretty but what's the word I'm looking for? It's a tall task. It's like taking on Halloween and trying to
Sure.
redo it the way he did. The Exorcist is a widely lauded film for its quality and all that from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a film that got the horror genre taken a bit more seriously at the time.
Fair.
I watch it now and I'm like, how? They just threw pea soup on a bunch of people, but it's a tall task, and I'm interested to see what happens with it one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next one, I'm gonna kind of do a little hop skip on our list down to Saw X, which is also listed as October, but I did not see a specific date in October for Saw X. Saw 10, they listed as X, so I'm gonna call it Saw X. That's like Jason X, even though, boy, I hope it's better than that was. But that was still fun.
Oh,
that
come
was
on,
still
Jason
fun.
in Space. That's one of my favorites of that franchise. Yeah. Absolutely. If they're taking Saw to space, then it's going to be a winner.
Whoa. Fast X might do the same thing tomorrow.
If Fast X goes to space, I will go see Fast X.
What you if tell me Fast afterward. 9 already did it?
They didn't. Nope. They bulked how it's supposed to happen. It happens in the 10th. That's what you do.
Oh, okay. They fumbled. Okay, that's fair.
They did.
But Saw X, we have Tobin Bell reprising his role, and we also have Shawnee Smith reprising her role from the original and second film.
Oh boy. Okay.
She may have been in the third as well. I cannot remember that well. I know she was in the first two. She played the big roles in the first two.
She had almost a minor role really in the first, and then she was very much front and center in 2 and 3.
Okay,
but she's been gone since 3.
I remember about 3 now. Yes, I remember 3 more clearly now that you say that. It was very prevalent. Then I'm like, yep, that's the one. So she's coming back again. And it's a Saw movie. Like, it's the next Saw movie. That's what I'm going to tell you, because I'm pretty sure there was already a Saw movie that was called, like, oh, the last one, or kind of the way they did Jason a couple of times, where it's like, oh, it's finally, like...
Yeah, they did, they did 7...
The last chapter, or something like that.
They did 7 in the initial run, then they did Jigsaw, then they did the Chris Rock...
Spiral.
Samuel L. Jackson one a couple years ago.
Spiral.
Right. So this is, and that whole idea, this is the 10th of all of that. But yeah, you're right. It seemed like, I thought they closed the book on this a while ago.
You know what? I feel like they close things up pretty well at the end of each of the films. And then they're just like, we can make more money off of it, do it again. And Tobin Bell's like, what the fuck else am I doing? Sure.
Yeah.
So
most of the people in this movie probably.
Yeah. It's going to be directed by Kevin Greutert, who is best known as directing Saw 3 and Saw 6 and Jezebel. That's pretty much it for his directing. So he's directed 2 other Saw movies, and honestly, every Saw movie but the first one has been kind of mid at best.
Yeah.
Spiral was a bit better, a little bit better. Same with Jigsaw. They were slight improvements on what the sequels had become. Because I feel like at some point the sequels just became, what kind of crazy devices can we make, as opposed to trying to tell a real story.
It became horror porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when it lost me. It wasn't about an actual story anymore, and that was bad. But now, last couple have started trying telling stories again and making it interesting. So we'll see what this one does.
We will.
Now, the last one on our list here is the one that I honestly think could end up either being maybe the biggest disappointment for me of 2023 if it's done wrong, and
Okay.
it could be high up on my top 10 if it does well. As we've seen with Willy's Wonderland, I love this kind of shit.
That's when I saw what you sent me about this, I absolutely thought like Willy's Wonderland seems like it ripped this off.
It absolutely did. And it was probably because they never thought this movie would be made.
Okay.
But Willy's Wonderland did it in such a way that was so good with, the silent Nicolas Cage role. Like, who thought to do that with this movie? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a Willy's Wonderland thing here, but whoever thought to be like, you know what could make this Five Nights at Freddy's, that's the movie we're talking about here, copycat movie work? Nicolas Cage is a silent role. Somebody said that, and somebody went, holy shit, yes, let's do this. Because why wouldn't you want to see that?
Get me
we're talking
a camera and $3 million.
Yeah. we're talking Five Nights at Freddy's, based on the amazing video game franchise, which has a lot of sequels at this point, 5, 6, 7, something like that. I'm pretty sure there's even like mobile games and all kinds of stuff. So first, before I get into any of the info about the movie, I want to ask Josh, what do you know about Five Nights at Freddy's as a video game?
Absolutely nothing, other than having slight recognition of the name of it. When you said this, nothing at all.
So, first of all, this is a video game you could play. You could genuinely play this video game.
Okay.
Because it doesn't require a lot of learned skills through years of gaming where you have like muscle memory and stuff like that from all this. The video game takes place with you, the new security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, and all you do is try not to die while sitting in your security booth. You cannot leave the booth. You don't walk around. Nothing like that happens.
Okay.
But you have to survive until morning. So if you're unaware with what goes on at Five Nights at Freddy's, it's kind of like Chuck E. Cheese if the animatronics came to life at night and tried to kill people. But come morning, the curse was lifted every day, and they would stop. And during the daytime, they did not try to kill people. Basically, There's a lot of lore involved in it and all that, but that's generally the idea. So you have to survive, and the goal of the game is to survive 5 nights working at Freddy's. So you have to survive your shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. How you do that is you observe the behaviors of the different animatronics and where they're going, and you have a power meter. So you can't just leave your doors. You have doors on either side of you that will stop them from getting you. But you can't just leave them closed because then you run out of power midway through the night, and then the doors are just open the rest of the night.
Okay.
But basically, there's different means and ways to manipulate what the different animatronics do and to check on where they're at and when you need to close the door, things like that. There's one that runs, there's one that hides, there's one that just turns up when it wants to. It's very interesting. But that's the synopsis of it. You just sit there and you just push a button here, push a button there, observe what's going on, and then boom, jump scare in your fucking face with the thing shaking at you is hilarious. And
so it's observation, deduction, and decision making
mixed with jump scares.
Sure.
And creepy robots.
Right. But the I don't say the point of it, but like the gameplay in a way, that's kind of what's happening.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
There's nothing too complicated, so you could give it a shot, and it's a horror game, so I figure maybe it would pull you in a little bit. Maybe it wouldn't.
Maybe.
However, about the movie, we'll start with it's being directed by Emma Tammy. Has directed The Wind and Fair Chase. I know nothing about either of those movies, but,
Same, but
that's
okay.
pretty much all that's there. Starring Josh Hutcherson. Seems like Josh will be taking on the role of the player, the new security at Freddy Fazbear's. Matthew Lillard, who seems from the trailer to be maybe like the boss or something like that. And Mary Stuart Masterson, who is listed as, I believe, female villain, is the only name that was given to her character.
Oh, that is her. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is,
all right.
I did not expect to see her name on the cast list
Right. Yeah.
when
yeah,
I
yeah.
was doing this. So yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's is something where we're drawing in some of these video games again. And honestly, this has a really steep hill to climb to be better than Willy's Wonderland. I feel like this is going to be the thing where Willy's Wonderland is the better Five Nights movie than Five Nights at Freddy's. However, I am hopeful. I do not like or dislike Josh Hutcherson. I think he's okay. I don't think like he makes or breaks a movie for me in any way. Matthew Lillard, man, he's just not around as much anymore as he should be. He was fun back in the day. I like Matthew Lillard. So this is all just going to be in how they handle it, and it can't take itself seriously, and if it tries to, it's going to fail.
Okay.
Because the game doesn't take itself seriously. You're being chased, like it's... So, my concern is that it tries to take itself too seriously. And doesn't lean into the ridiculousness of it all.
But for me, sometimes I think if projects are... I think it's the conveyance of... Are they telling us that they're in on the joke with us, or they're making the joke to us? Because if they're in on the joke with us, then they can take it as seriously as they want to and be earnest about it, while we understand the ridiculous nature of what we're seeing.
And that's why Willy's Wonderland worked.
A little bit, right. I'll give you that. Yes. Absolutely. But if they lean, in my opinion, if they lean too much into the, don't you get it? Isn't this ridiculous? You're seeing how ridiculous this is. You're laughing at it, right? But it's supposed to be serious. If I don't know what the right words are to pull that, but it's almost like if they're constantly trying to convince you and reassure you of how silly it is, that's where you lose me. There's times where you can take a silly idea and a ridiculous idea, and maybe it's just the way that we're both using words, but if you take a silly thing seriously, it's actually a better experience for me at times when as long as you know that that the point of it is not earnest. It's not it's not important in a way. It's absolutely dumb fun. But if you treat it seriously and come up with something really good, then you don't go into just sort of like obnoxious self satire territory. And I hope that they toe that line.
I agree, and there's a lot there to work with in the game. There's a lot of characters that the animatronics have, and they all have different behaviors, and I hope they lean into that a little bit. Maybe just as a Easter egg for the people that love the games, and maybe a bit just to make it more entertaining, so that, the one that runs all the time can be, like, upbeat and, like, all kinds of ridiculous. Because the thing the game doesn't do is it doesn't let you see any of what actually happens to you. You know what I mean? Like, when it happens, you just get a pop jump scare, one of them screaming in your face, and then it's like, oh, you lost. And then start over. So, will they lean into, gory deaths, or I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to do that kind of thing, or is it going to be Are they going to make a joke of that? I don't know what they're going to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
that's
right.
why I'm so interested to see it, is because I don't know what's going to come of it. You know what I mean? Like, what actually is going to happen in these movies. So I think it'll
Touché.
be interesting to see.
All right.
So that wraps up the list of stuff for horror fans coming in the next several months. And I don't know. I kind of sold mine out already. The Insidious is the one I'm looking most forward to. Josh, do you have one that tops the list for you?
I think the three easy, in no particular order, but Insidious, Last Voyage of the Demeter, and I think A Haunting in Venice as well. So we're pretty in simpatico with that.
Yeah, and the only other honorable mention I'd throw is Cobweb. Andy Starr, and seeing what happens with that, I'm really up for that. So I think it's going to be a good time, and I look forward to seeing as many of these movies as possible before the next episode, presumably sometime in September is when we like to do it, to get you guys prepared for that special spooky season when there's new horror movies coming out multiple times a week for a month. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that when the time comes. Do you have any closing thoughts, Josh, before I pitch it back to Brian to outro us?
No. I'm just happy that we, so far, knock on wood, we kept up on getting back to what we envisioned this being like 3 or 4 years ago of like a biannual update, and hopefully we won't lose this one like we did a few years ago with our mid-year update. And hopefully you guys are hearing this. It very much was. It really it detracted us for like 2 years.
Yeah, a bit. I'm glad we're back to it.
Yes.
We're having fun with it. So that's going to be it from us. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy horror just as much as us. If you do, let Brian know that you want to hear some more of these episodes. And that's about as far as I'll pitch for us on this. So Brian, go ahead and lead us out with your whole spiel and shit. Have fun.
See you guys next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Josh, Mike, well done. Appreciate you guys. I'm sure we'll plan another time for these guys to do another one of the horror-themed ones. I think they're already talking about, I even think they talked about it in the episode, but eyeing for the fall to do a proper spooky movie season type of thing. So whether it's going to be October, September, somewhere in there, but you can keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to close down the show with. I don't have any housekeeping stuff. I don't think we need to really get through. Podcast recordings have been sporadic. Topics have been sporadic. I don't really know what we'll get to next. I guess Spider-Verse is coming out. That might be the next big one. So I don't know if we'll hold off until we see Spider-Verse, and maybe that will be the next one we sort of review and talk about, if we'll have something else between now and then. We're getting closer to June, which means we'll probably do another Mission Impossible coming up in a couple weeks. Also, off the top of my head, I don't think I can think of anything else. So I guess you can keep an eye out for probably those two. We'll see if something else comes up that we want to talk about or something else we want to fit in. But other than that, that is all I have. So I guess it's now on to my regular spiel and shit, as Mike said. So if you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Give us a share on social media. Be sure to follow, subscribe, keep up with the show. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Google, Stitcher, Amazon. Hopefully, any way you're finding podcasts, you can find us. As always, you can check us out on Facebook. Search Bry Guy and Super Friends, or go to facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. You can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions, any of that stuff there. Try to send us an email, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. I won't see it. I never checked the damn thing. It's probably been over a year. So maybe I get questions in there from you guys waiting. I apologize if I hadn't got to them. I just don't check it. Hit us up on Twitter @BGSuperFriends. That I will see. That I will respond to. Feel free to follow me on Twitch. It's Jedi Bry Guy, Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. Whenever we decide to do a live recording of a show, we will do it there. So you can follow and keep up with us there. The other thing, actually, as of the time of this recording, this morning, I actually finished playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I streamed the entire game from start to finish that I have done. It totaled, I think, 11 parts that I videos that I put up. So as of right now, they're still all on my Twitch channel if you want to go back and watch the VOD. I think they should be there for 60-ish days. I have the recordings. I don't know if I'll do anything with them and put them up on YouTube and like really edit or anything like that. That's probably not something I will do. So for right now, if you're catching this recording and want to go back and check into that stuff out, it's there. Like I said, I don't know if I'll do anything with it later, but if you catch this early enough and want to go check it out, please feel free and let me know what you think if you get there. As of that, that's it. So on behalf of, I guess, Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.